BP announcing this week it will pay a record $4.5 billion settlement over the Gulf oil spill. In the meantime, 2 rig workers have been charged with manslaughter in the deaths of 11 other workers. Their attorneys say they're being scapegoated by the Department of Justice. Do they have a point on that? But first, does BP's record settlement fit their offense? Joining us now is defense attorney Doug Burns, civil attorney Vikki Zielger, an adjunct professor at Fordham Law School. All right, Doug, let me start with you.
Sure.
$4.5 billion.
Yes.
In which the company is essentially pleading guilty to criminal charges.
Yep.
But my goodness, given the massive damage to the Gulf, the loss of life, 11 workers were killed, and you juxtapose that, the amount of money, the profits that BP makes. Last year alone, they made $25.8 billion in profits.
Right.
Does $4.5 billion fit the crime?
I don't think you can isolate it. That's the problem. I don't really have a strong editorial opinion per se. However, let me say this. They've spent $14 billion on cleanup efforts, apparently. Yeah. They've paid $7.8 billion to individuals, businesses, and others. They project another $7.8 billion, Greg, apparently. And by the way, this criminal settlement with DOJ, put that to the side, there's still potential civil liability looming on the landscape.
All right, my sense is you're thinking, yeah, okay, maybe it's okay.
Well, I don't want to say that.
What do you, oh, come on. Vikki, what do you think? Take a position here.
Tip of the iceberg. I think this is just the beginning. We know that they're going to face civil penalties in the billions as well, so everything's going to be adding on. This could be in totality a $50 billion tab for this unfortunate catastrophic disaster. So I think this is just the beginning. I don't feel sorry for them, and I think it's time to really own up to what they actually did.
Now let's talk about the 2 company employees who are now charged with manslaughter in the death of 11 workers on that oil rig. One of their attorneys is saying, you know what, they're just being victimized as scapegoats here. In fact, let's put up on the screen one of the quotes from the lawyer. "It is almost inconceivable that any fair-minded person would blame this hardworking and diligent man for one of the most catastrophic events in the history of the oil business." Doug?
Well, I was never a big fan, and I'm still not, of that type of charge. I've been in construction accident, scaffolding accident, criminal investigations a number of times. And generally, fortunately, in those instances, nobody was charged. But you can bring an involuntary manslaughter charge. I don't necessarily like it. I looked at the indictment, actually. They charge him with involuntary manslaughter and then seaman's manslaughter under federal law, which is interesting.
Yeah. What is this, like gross recklessness and indifferent to human life?
Right. Unlawful manner or omission. And the question is, who actually can you blame? Is there a proximate cause element here? Are they going to be blaming other people, or was it these 2 individuals? Was it their culpability that led to the deaths? And remember, already BP has already pled guilty on the criminal side to 11 counts of manslaughter. So how is that going to dovetail into these charges?
Well, listen, DOJ, Doug, is still investigating. They could criminally charge others.
No, there's no question about that. And as a matter of fact, in some of the media articles that was raised, you know, another issue, Greg, I suppose, is, which I think is a bit of a red herring, you know, does the plea by the corporation then in some way impact or foreclose?
Is that admissible evidence?
Well, according to one expert I spoke with, he said no, and I agree with him, actually.
Likely not.
Because no conspiracy, Greg.
Yeah,
and that's the
prejudicial effect would outweigh any probative
I
value.
Think so,
Absolutely.
Which is the standard in a court of law for admission.
Absolutely.
Rule 403. Yes.
Yeah, I remember it well. Former BP executive David Rainey is charged with something different. Not manslaughter, but obstruction of Congress and making false statements, withholding information about how much of the oil was really gushing from the well. Now, that's an easier case to prove, isn't it?
Yes, and I'm outraged at the misstatements, the falsification of information that was given to Congress under oath. And you know why they did it? Because they didn't want to be affected by the Clean Water Act. The penalties quadruple for more barrels of oil that are spilled. They knew it, and they did it. And they were trying to save deep pockets, and that is unacceptable.
Doug, do they probably have the goods on Rainey?
Depends on the paper trail. In other words, if you can get your hands on one document that says, look, you got to understate this thing, you got to downsize it, then he's going to be dead in the water. Otherwise,
but if it's only a document he didn't read, he can always say, hey, I didn't see that doc.
Well, yeah, that's what most CEOs say, Greg.
But wait a second.
When they're lying under oath.
Greg, 5,000 gallons versus, 66 gallons a day.
It's a
Big
huge
difference. It's just not like a typo. I mean, that's what we're talking about, right? You could agree with that.
No, I agree with that.
Okay.
I do.
All right. Vikki Zielger, Doug Burns. Good to see you both.
Thank you,
Thank
Greg.
you.
Heather?